comments have exploded through the roof. So there you go.
Good afternoon, Lancaster. Welcome to Lancaster Connects. I'm your host, Ben McClure, bringing you amazing conversations with wonderful people right here in Lancaster County. I've got a great guest. We're going to bring her on in just a little bit. Lancaster Connects, again, we have conversations with nonprofits and charitable organizations making an impact in this community impact organizations, right? Or community benefit organizations, I think is a term we've been using since the beginning of the year. Other small businesses like Gardener's Mattress and More, the business that I co-own with my partner in business here, Jeff Giannakovo. He stepped away from the show for a moment to take care of some health concerns with the family, but hope to have him back at some point here in the spring. But, again, having conversations with amazing people right here in the Lancaster community, telling their stories, telling how they impact the Lancaster community. And today's show is going to be a great one, so stick around. I had a funny experience. I just have to share this. Had a funny experience this morning at the gym. I go to the gym early in the morning, a few mornings a week, and somebody walked up to me. Somebody I've seen in the gym for a couple years now, and I was down picking something up off the floor, and I stood up, and he was like right in front of me, and he's like, "Your podcast, you showed up in my news feed." And he's like, "I didn't even know you did a podcast." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." I was wondering like where he's going with it, and he's like, "I never thought I would watch an hour-long podcast about sheets, like sheets for your bed." I did a podcast or one of these episodes. I think it was a President's Day episode a couple weeks ago. He's like, "I never thought I'd watch an hour-long podcast about sheets, but I did. And I got to come in and see you for a new set of sheets because I guess he and his wife got new bamboo sheets for their bed at home. And really quickly they pilled. And he's like, "I totally associated with what you were talking about because you've got bamboo sheets that don't pill." So I'm like, people are watching. This is awesome. So Jack, if you're watching, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in, and look forward to helping you out with an amazing set of real bamboo sheets that don't pill. So just a fun story there. Of course, you can watch Lancaster Connects. This is broadcast live, and it's broadcast live on our YouTube channel. Both the Lancaster Connects and the Gardener's Mattress and More YouTube channel. Also the Facebook feeds, it's live. I'd love to hear from you during the show. If you're watching live right now, heart the episode, like it, message me during the interview. Maybe you have something you want to say to me or a question you want to ask our guest, which would be awesome. I've got some things prepared for our little conversation here, but maybe you have some questions for our guest. Feel free, by all means, put them in the chat, and we'll get you on the screen there. Oh, there's Mr. John Arisman. Thank you, John. John was our guest on last week's show. I had a great conversation with John and the organization that he works with called Stratic Systems. They help organizations with their IT systems and management of the IT systems. An amazing company there. Had a great conversation with John. John was actually one of our only 3-time guests, he is a 3-timer. So I think we're on episode 184, maybe. So John was last week. Great conversation with him. John, thanks for chiming in. Again, love to hear from you during the show. If you're watching live, that would be awesome. Also, if you want to watch past episodes, all 183 past episodes are available on the Lancaster Connects website. Just go to lancasterconnects.com/episodes or hit the Lancaster Connects homepage. Up at the top, you'll see a watch more episodes or watch past episodes button. Click that, and you can see all the past episodes of Lancaster Connects. And also, if you are somebody watching or know somebody, if you're watching and you have a story to tell, maybe you're a person that has an organization that gives back to the community, or you run a small business or work for a small business that gives back to the Lancaster community, and you have a story to tell, hit us up on the guest page, lancasterconnects.com/guest. Again, at the top of the screen, I think it says be a guest in the menu tab there. Hit that, fill out the simple form, tell us why you'd like to be a guest on Lancaster Connects, and we'll get you on. Or if you know somebody, send them that link and tell them that they should be on Lancaster Connects. There is no cost for anybody to be on Lancaster Connects. It's a way for us, as Jeff and I, as Gardener's Mattress and More, as a small business here in Lancaster, to give back to the Lancaster community. And again, we're not talking typically about mattresses or bed sheets or pillows. Every once in a while, we might throw one of those episodes in. 95 or more % of our episodes are geared towards having conversations with people that give back to the community. And I guess it's maybe a good segue into introducing our guest, who is exactly one of those people. We are going to bring on Amy Sechrist, who represents Compass Mark right here in Lancaster. Amy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So I'll admit, and I said it in the pre-show, I wasn't aware of Compass Mark before you popped up onto our radar as a guest, and I'm excited to learn all about it and what you do and how you impact the Lancaster community. So you ready to go?
I'm happy to tell you.
All right, let's get started. Can you share a little bit about the history and mission of Compass Mark?
Absolutely. Compass Mark has been around over 50 years, since 1966. Oh, wow. And so we've had a lot of different names, but we started out in 1966 as the Council on Alcoholism, Lancaster County. And back in the 60s, people were starting to gain some momentum, recognizing alcoholism as an illness as opposed to a moral failing. And there was this series of councils that were opening up across the country. And we were one of those. That we charter with the 12 people who created our council. And so from the beginning, we didn't use the word prevention back then, but we've always had education and advocacy as a goal since that time. So I started in 2003. The name was the Council on Drug and Alcohol Abuse. Okay. At some point, we started talking about drugs as well as alcohol. Sure. And then, in the 2000s, we decided to change our name to differentiate ourselves from some of the county offices or state offices, and came up with Compass Mark, where, we're going to meet you at whatever point on the compass you're at, and we're going to guide you to a new destination. So that was the imagery. Yeah.
I like that. So you're not affiliated with any of the Lancaster-based or government, maybe funded programs?
No. No, we're affiliated in that they're amazing partners, and we get a percentage of our funding from them. So that's, coming down from federal and state, but we are not a county office. People often mistake that.
Gotcha. And so you said 2003. So that's, you're almost
it's a
20.
While.
Yeah. What is your role with Compass Mark?
Well, I have two main roles at this point. One is communications coordinator. So I just like to talk about Compass Mark, and I do all of our social media, our website, and our social media. But I'm also a prevention specialist. So I am board certified in the science of prevention. I answer our addiction hotline, which isn't actually prevention. The disease of addiction is present there. We're not preventing, but I do answer that hotline where people can just call and get help for an addiction problem, either the person with the addiction or a loved one. And then I do speaking engagements and sort of lead our public health messaging, because in our business, doing social media is doing the prevention itself. As opposed to like Coca-Cola is selling more Coca-Cola.
Sure. Yeah,
we're selling health. So sort of leading our messaging that way.
Gotcha. So what are some of the programs offered at Compass Mark? What can you kind of delve into what that entails?
Yeah. Most of our programs run in schools. And so part of our agency are both full-time and part-time facilitators of prevention curricula. So we just have folks, most of them have a teaching degree, who are out in the schools in Lancaster County during the school year, running these programs, which are based in social and emotional learning. And just basically what that means is that, as opposed to trying to warn or scare young people into not using alcohol or drugs or gambling at a young age, because that's also part of our mandate. We are coming in to do skill building with them. And so all of the science and all of the research is showing that, and this is, 30, 40 years worth, that kids need to learn how to self-regulate, meaning they feel a really hard emotion. And what do they do with that? Do they stuff it? Do they distract themselves? Do they experiment with substances? Do they sort of bury themselves in a video game or a screen to distract themselves? Or do they learn to actually sort of cope with those hard emotions? So we teach kids how to even just recognize what emotions are, what they feel like, then what to do with hard emotions when they come up. And then we teach them how to get along with each other. How do you get along in this world? They need to know how to do that. And it can be taught, and it's extra effective when it's practiced. So we teach the skills, they practice in class. And then as they get older, it gets a little more sophisticated. So that's the heart of our work.
Yeah. When does that start? When does that education start with, like what grade level or age range?
We start in pre-K. We go up to 12th grade and beyond.
Yeah.
And it's never too early for prevention. The photo that's up there, these are some of our middle schoolers who are learning leadership skills. But, way before 4th, 5th, or 6th grade, little kids can be learning, what is this that I feel right now? Oh, this is anger. Where in my body do I feel anger? And what is something I could do when I feel really, really mad, but I'm in class and I'm supposed to be paying attention? And we have little puppets, and we teach them about, our little turtle puppet. He goes into his shell for a few minutes, and he does a little breathing, and he calms down a little. And when he's ready, he comes out of his shell again, and then he's ready to be in class. So, but even little kids can be taught, probably a lot of people are already doing this and they don't know they're doing prevention, but we're teaching kids, like, these are medicines and you don't touch these unless, caregiver says it's okay to take your medicine. And these are poisons. Mr. Yuck, Mr. Yuck symbol.
Yeah.
So really little kids, we start just teaching them these substances need extra respect. And then it goes up from there. Yeah.
And the prevention part of it, you're helping young ones manage anger properly so that when it comes time, when they're older and they are able to, make adult decisions, when they get angry, they're making proper decisions as opposed to making decisions to abuse alcohol or drugs. Is that the mindset?
It's the mindset. And what we find is that the more people are able to recognize the emotions they're feeling, if they've been validated throughout their childhood, just saying, you're a human, you're going to feel these things. They're not fun always. There's really fun emotions and there's really hard ones, but they're going to pass. They're not you. They're not who you are. And learning how to let them pass. We all have different genes. We all have different experiences. So for some kids, it's going to be harder than others. But they need practice. They need to have these concepts. And so as they're maturing and as they're developing and gaining social skills, that they have some sort of foundation for managing when things start to get tough, when they enter middle school and they hit puberty and life starts to get really complicated. If that's already routine for them, they're ahead of the game. What we find is all of these things prevent substance use, right? Drugs or alcohol. They prevent gambling onset, but they prevent other things too, like, really basic mental health symptoms like anxiety and depression.
That makes sense. Are you educating kids on the substances themselves? What the substances are that they should be looking out for, and what the substances do from an effect to the body standpoint? What's the education like from a substance standpoint?
Kids need to know those things. They may be getting some of that in health class. I know in the 80s, I had that in health class, but we do have, say, when I say curriculum, it just means we have, 12 lessons that we teach over time, or we have 24 lessons that we go in and teach to these kids. A couple of them are going to be about substances, and they're going to be age appropriate. The first substances that kids sort of run into in the world would be nicotine through cigarettes or vaping, alcohol, marijuana or cannabis. We're not going to go into a second grade classroom and talk to kids about heroin or fentanyl. They don't need to know that. And so it's always age appropriate, and they need to know, they need to understand health risks, but they also need to be able to say that causes them anxiety. Say they're in a lesson, Catch My Breath is one of our programs. And that's specifically talking about vaping and cigarette smoking. And they are around people who are vaping. They feel a little anxiety now that they know that vaping and smoking can cause lung problems. Maybe they have parents who smoke or vape, and they're worried about their parents as far as lung cancer. So they have anxiety. Well, we don't want to just hoist all these facts on kids and leave them with that anxiety to stew about it. That's not helpful. And that's what we used to do as a culture for prevention. So what we do now is we give a little bit of information, and then we help them step that anxiety back down by giving them skills that they can practice. So, if they are in a peer group and they're starting to get exposed to vaping or smoking, how do you actually say no to somebody? What are some tactics you can use? You could use humor. You could use just blame it on your parents or caregivers. Oh, they would kill me if I did that. There's no way. You learn, maybe I'm going to distract this group. Like, hey guys, okay, I know that, we could do that, but weren't we going to go skate? Let's continue on to the skate park. They need to know the tools and practice it so that they're prepared, what we call that moment of choice when it actually happens out in the world.
That makes sense. I'll just share a personal story. My son is in 5th grade, and we just learned of an experience through another parent who said that he's in a building where there's 5th and 6th graders. And it wasn't in his class, but I know it happened in the school where a student brought gummies into the school and distributed them to, he was just, I guess, giving them out to other kids. And there was a serious health issue with one of the kids that was just eating gummies without knowing what they were. So, maybe this boy did or didn't know what he was bringing into the school. And definitely the kids that were around him didn't know what was going on. But we used that as a learning or teaching experience with our son. Like, hey, if this is presented to you, here's what you need to know about it, and here's how to handle the situation. And so, that's kind of like, gummies maybe have been around for a little bit now, but that's something that a 5th grader, 6th grader doesn't know about.
Yeah. They do or they don't, right? There is a percentage, unfortunately, who do know about them because their parents maybe are using, very comfortably in front of them without explanation. But on the one hand, I'm sorry you guys went through that experience. It was probably scary for you guys. And on the other hand, it did give you an opportunity to have that chat and capitalizing as parents on those opportunities to have those discussions. It is crucial. We are an agency and we all work here and are passionate about our jobs, but prevention can happen all throughout our community. Prevention of substance use disorder and ultimately addiction. And that's just good parenting, but you're also, you're intervening, you're doing prevention, and kids really whether they let on or not, they really look up to their parents and
Yeah.
take seriously your opinion on those things,
Yeah.
especially in fifth grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He was, he didn't really know anything about it. Again, it wasn't in his class or he
Yeah.
wasn't exposed to it, but, when we brought it up to him, he understood what we were talking about and, seemed to seemed to get the message. So yeah, I welcomed the opportunity
Yeah.
to have that conversation with, because it wasn't even something that I had even crossed my mind that would
Yeah.
be, something that a fifth or sixth grader might face. But that's I guess where we are
It's
sometimes
where we are.
with
Exactly.
things. Uh, in my notes here, the student assistance program,
Yeah.
uh, is that something different than what you've been describing?
It is.
Okay.
And our role, so that's another program that we have, is to
Okay.
train the people who run student assistance programs in all of the schools. So we don't run those programs.
Okay.
We train the teachers, the guidance counselors, the administrators in the schools. And for people who don't know, SAP is the acronym we use to
Mhm.
describe that. It's mandated in PA, so it's probably in your child's school,
Okay. Yep.
and it's an intervention team made up of all those professionals that I mentioned, who are there to just help kids who are having any roadblocks to learning. Those roadblocks often end up being either mental health issues or substance use. Those are the most common roadblocks. So that little team at your child's school, they have to get trained on
Okay.
mental health issues. What are the drugs that are out there? How do they work? But then just SAP law, how it all works, how to work with parents and other caregivers through that process. It's completely a partnership with the parents or grandma or aunt or whoever is raising that child. Have to get permission to work with them. And how do you add some support for this child? Do they need a mental health assessment? Do they need some counseling? Maybe there's something in school they would really benefit from that they're not involved with yet.
Mm-hmm.
So that team is there to sort of brainstorm and then reach out and help the caregivers get that extra help for the child. So yeah, we train all of those folks how to do it.
And so every school in the county has a SAP program.
I'm going to
And
say that I'm going to say yes, it's mandated, and I'm pretty
okay.
sure
Yeah.
everyone is doing that
Compliant.
as mandated. Yeah.
Yeah. And these programs where you're going in, I know I'm backtracking and
It's
talking with
okay.
students, that you're in every school in the county then.
We are in 10 districts. I think
Yep.
Lancaster County has 16.
Yep.
And
Okay.
I was counting up beforehand, and we were for last school year, 23-24, we were in 41 individual buildings in
Yeah.
those 10 districts, a little over 4,000 students we worked
I was going
with.
to say, yeah, you're impacting thousands and thousands of kids.
Yeah.
That's awesome to get that anger management conversation started early, because we can't rely on teachers to do it all, right? And
Absolutely. Yeah.
and unfortunately, parents
We're
don't do a great
parents,
job
right?
of it. So it's
Yeah.
great to know that kids are getting that sort of education and help throughout their education process.
Yeah, if they had it every year in one form or another, because some schools do this kind of thing in their health classes. It's called character education sometimes, you know, really sort of who am I? Can I manage myself? And what is this world around me? And do I care about it? And how do I want to interact in my school, in my neighborhood, in my family? Really just developing those values. So yeah, and we're also, just to put a pitch in, we're in Lebanon and Chester counties also. So that was
Okay.
just Lancaster numbers.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I'm aware of the Addiction Resource Hub on the Compass Marks, I believe, website. What is that all about?
Well, we used to have an actual office. That was my office, back in the day, where you would come in. We'd have, a couple hundred books on addiction that you could borrow. And we had all these VHS tapes and then DVDs. And at this point, our resource hub is mostly virtual. People in Lancaster County who live or work can stream one of maybe 40, 50 films on
Oh, wow.
addiction free of charge from that hub.
That's great.
The information and referral that I mentioned, which is just basically people calling in and me providing a safe space for them to talk through the addiction issue in their family, and then getting them a really customized list of referrals in the community. That's part of our Addiction Resource Center. And then we do go out into the community and do other types of speaking engagements where maybe we go and we've done Lancaster County employees and talking about having addiction in the family. How can you be effective when somebody that you love has an addiction problem that's ongoing and it isn't seeming to get any better, that type of thing. So we just really want to be kind of a one-stop shop. You can literally come here and get pamphlets if you have an event going on. We go out in the community and do, health expos and things like that to interact with people. But when it comes to substance use and gambling, we just want to be your resource. And if we can't accommodate, then we know who could.
Sure. At the beginning of our conversation, you mentioned, I believe, a hotline that people can call in on. What's the process when somebody calls in, whether it's themselves or a friend or family member?
Yeah.
I think you said you're answering the phone, or one of your specialists is answering the phone. And what does that conversation look like? I'm sure it's different for every scenario and every person, but maybe you can just talk us through a little bit about what that's like.
I can. And it's so interesting to me. I've been having these conversations since 2003. So, 21 years. And they are all different, but there's such regular themes that run through these conversations at the same time. It's like they're all different and they're all the same. We say we have a hotline. It's just our regular phone number. You press 1 for addiction issues and it comes into my cubicle. But it's sort of, I would put it in 2 categories. You have people with a substance use disorder or a gambling disorder. They are calling in here because they've gone through a decision-making process that they need help of some kind. I am not in the position ever of trying to talk someone into getting help, getting treatment or going to a support group. They've already made that decision. There have been consequences usually in their lives.
Sure.
Maybe somebody has given them an ultimatum. Maybe they have gotten a DUI. Maybe there's health issues starting to happen and they've decided going to get treatment. So those are generally very straightforward conversations. And the biggest issues are, how do I pay for this? Do I have any insurance? If not, there's sometimes county funding or maybe they're eligible for Medicaid. So really getting them pointed in the right direction and making those linking calls or emails if that's welcome to them. We call that a warm handoff when we don't want someone to fall through the cracks at any point. If they change their mind, truly, that's fine. But we don't want them to get frustrated and abandon their attempt to get help, because addiction can be life or death, right?
Yeah.
So, and then the other type of call is when a loved one calls, and it could be a spouse, a grandparent, a child in their 20s or 30s calling about their older parent. And those calls often just come in with someone saying, we're in a mess and I don't know what to do. And so we offer a safe, non-judgmental space. You're not going to shock us with your stories of the ramifications of addiction that are going on in your family.
Right.
We've heard it all. We're not going to be judging people for having been in prison, for any of the ramifications of addiction.
Right.
And when I'm answering those calls, I'm listening for patterns, and I'm just going to start trying to sort out, does this person seem to be using alcohol on a very regular basis, and maybe going into withdrawal when they stop? That would mean they need detoxification.
Yeah.
It could be very dangerous. So starting to move in that direction in my mind, and then checking in with the person. And is this what you had in mind? Or maybe this is just a very complicated situation with a family where grandma is calling in because she's pretty sure if things keep going in this direction, she's going to have to start raising the grandchildren if
Yeah.
her adult child, continues to struggle with their alcohol use disorder or their opioid use disorder. And so just sort of getting them the information they're asking for. They usually have a very specific point of view after we get going. And also, if it's not the person with the addiction, checking in and making sure if they're interested, they know how to get help and support for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's such a long haul sometimes.
Yeah, that all makes sense. So when somebody calls in, you're a listening ear, a non-judgmental listening ear, and you're connecting the dots to the services that might be helpful in each particular instance. Compass Mark is not offering those, I guess, recovery
Treatment
services.
Correct.
You're the in between, making sure that this person who has this situation gets the proper help that they need from XYZ service over here. That's fantastic.
And we used to be the only option locally, but we do have a Pennsylvania hotline now, PA Get Help, who does a good job. And there are other options, but we've decided that it's important enough to us to keep offering the service to the public.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. I know you have the Positive Change Conference coming up.
We do.
In April. I think Chris will probably bring that information up onto the screen here. But tell us what that is and why it's important, and how people can get involved.
We love the Positive Change Conference. This conference has been around in one format or another since it's either 1991 or 92.
Oh, wow. Wow.
It was originated by our local Lancaster County Drug and Alcohol Commission. That's our county office that helps people with addiction treatment, addiction prevention, and recovery, kind of funds all of those things. And so they used to put this conference on for professionals to teach them about addiction. It got a new name somewhere in the 2000s. We took it over from the county. They said, hey, we'd love for you guys to work on this with us. And then, we were the main hosts. So since 2020, it's been virtual. We've decided for the time being to keep it virtual. It's a community conference. This is not sort of an academic conference. We want to keep it really accessible to people. And so what we say is that it's for helping professionals, because the people that end up coming are mostly teachers, mental health therapists or addiction counselors, probation officers, and then just sort of general social service folks. So they're out interacting with the public, either as a client or a student.
Sure.
But they're not an expert in addiction necessarily, but they're interacting with addiction, maybe on a really regular basis. So this is an opportunity for them to get more skills. We always say we want to inspire, because addiction is tough. It's hard. It's depressing. Let's be realistic. So we want to offer an uplifting event for people, but we also want them to get really practical skills that they can go out the next day and use at work. So it's 2 half days. It's April 2nd and 3rd. We try to keep it as low cost as possible. It's $40 for those 2 days, up to 6 credits. We have social work credits and Act 48 for teachers. And it's as interactive as a virtual event can be. There's networking opportunities. There's a game that you can play and sort of score points on a leaderboard to win Compass Mark swag. And all the while, you're going to be getting this year workshops that are sort of addressing addiction and mental health issues as addressing the whole person around those issues. So we have some brain health workshops. We have one workshop that focuses on nutrition and exercise and how that helps your mental health. So we have some old standbys as far as skills people need to work with people with addictions. And then we're bringing in this holistic view as well. So how do your brain can get more healthy. So how does that happen? How do we support students or clients to have their brain get healthy and therefore the whole person?
So organizations would sign their employees up for this, or if you are self-employed or whatever, you can just go to the website and sign up yourself.
Yes.
And you said it was $40. That covers both days?
Yes.
That's great. And compassmark.org, I think, is the website.
That's correct.
And we'll probably see positive, what was it? Positive Change Conference. I'm sorry. I totally lost myself in my brain and my notes. Probably the link at the top of the page there, and get signed up right there. Looks like a fun 2-day event. You've been doing it since early 90s, you said? That's awesome.
It's not been exactly the same, but it's the same conference. You also get a snack box mailed to your house beforehand.
I saw something about that.
Treats, so
that's cool. That's cool. The speakers that are there, are they mostly local people?
Some of them are local. Because it's virtual, we can get speakers from all over.
That's great.
In any given county, you don't have a million prevention agencies, right?
Yeah.
So in some cases, we have local speakers who our planning committee is really excited about. And then, if we hear a virtual speaker, Crystal Collier, who you see there, is an amazing virtual presenter on how the brain works, and especially for kids, like how does the brain develop and where does it go wrong when they start to develop like addictions or compulsions, and how to sort of steer their brain health back on track. And she's from Texas, so from all over.
Cool. And the person who would be best benefited, I mean, of course, everybody should likely attend a training like this, but is it the people that work for an organization that works with the public, that interacts with the public? That's, and is the thought process, if you're working with the public and you have this sort of training and this sort of knowledge and continual education into addiction and recovery and that sort of thing, you're looking out for symptoms that people you work with or interact with on a daily basis might have, that you can help get them the help that they might need?
Yes, that I think that's a good way to put it. We have expanded it to include mental health issues also, because they're overlapping in so many cases, and so many people experience an addiction and other mental health issues. So we try to make sure there are workshops for teachers so that they're looking more at the either preventing this from starting or helping very young people. We always have a few workshops geared towards treatment, whether it's mental health or addiction treatment, so how to work with your clients. And then also recovery. This year we're talking about peer support. So people who are in recovery from a mental illness or an addiction disorder who want to help others just like them, who get extra training, and then sort of walk alongside the people with these illnesses. They're incredibly effective. So we have a really good presentation, set up to encourage those peer workers. So if you're interacting in a professional capacity with people with addictions, it's, you don't know about a lot of these things unless you have to. Right.
Sure.
We're not going to just sign up for an addiction course. It's not anybody's fun thing to do, but yeah, if it's impacting your work, it's a good place to land. It's very accessible.
Yeah, that
You
makes
don't have to be
sense.
an expert.
That makes sense. The impact that you're having on the Lancaster community, are you able to share like how many people you might impact in a year or over time, or like
Sure.
what is the impact on the community here for the services that you're offering there at Compass Mark?
So for Lancaster, we mentioned we have a little over 4,000 students
Yeah,
last school year
yeah.
in the schools. We have another program we didn't talk about, which is called Skills for Life. So that's
Oh,
our,
yeah.
our kind of highest level of prevention. These are young people who are actually experimenting, and they're getting some sort of consequences. Usually they're getting an arrest for underage
Yeah.
drinking. They're getting
Hmm.
in trouble at school, maybe. So they're referred into 12 hours of evening classes. Again, doing character education, again, learning how to cope with disappointment or grief or anger, learning about alcohol and marijuana. And then they're a little older and they're experimenting. So we're
Yeah.
talking about, do you have a family history that you're aware of anybody having, a substance use disorder, or does anybody gamble too much in your family? If they do, you have a little bit higher risk for developing, an addiction. And we could just have more conversations with the older kids. They range from 13 up to 25 in two different age groups.
Gotcha.
So just making it age appropriate for what they're actually running into in their lives, and also looking towards the future for those young people. Like, what do you have in mind for your future? And does this, smoking marijuana or
Right.
vaping marijuana or drinking heavily on the weekends, is that kind of getting you closer to what you have in mind? Or maybe is it taking you a little further away? So that's a smaller program, right? We serve about 70 young people per year with that program. As far as those educators that we train to be on those SAP teams, those
Hmm.
intervention teams, last year we trained about 650 of those
Wow.
people.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
as far as information referral, when I'm talking on the phone with people to just really get them to a solid next step as far as community resources, that was maybe 225 people last
Okay.
year.
Wow. Yeah.
So those are some of the numbers.
Yeah.
And then we also are able to learn about and then share some of our real impacts. So we're preventing something bad from happening, and that's kind of a hard sell. And so luckily there are prevention scientists figuring out how to measure that. So when a little kid comes into one of our positive action classes, which is one of our very popular curricula, and they're going to learn how to do positive things in the community, how having positive thoughts leads to positive actions, all kinds of good stuff. So how are we, what's the point? How do we know that was a good thing to do with them?
Right. Right.
So they take a pre-test and they take a post-test. Um, and we're able to measure things like, the easiest thing to change with anybody is what they know about. Just, you're going to teach them some facts,
Hmm.
right? So maybe that child says, I now know about more. Like, maybe I know a little bit more about alcohol and how it affects your brain and how it affects your body. And then I also know the value of having positive thoughts. I know about it. And we can say like 85% of those 4,000 kids said, I learned more about this. But we would like them to go further than just knowing it, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so then in the middle, you have your kind of belief system and your values. And so how many of them now have taken, weeks of classes and now really value getting along with other people or recognizing their own emotions? How many of them have changed their belief system? And let me look at my notes here. About 56% of them
Oh.
are changing what they describe as what they value. And then the hardest thing to do is to get people to change their actual behavior. So, that's going to be a lower number, but about 19% of those are saying, I actually am not using like vapes, I'm not drinking, and fancy people have decided how to ask them questions to tell whether they're at risk for it in the future.
I got you.
And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
19, 20% have lowered their actual risk for doing the behavior in the future, which is really significant. 1 in 5 not proceeding with risky behaviors in the future. So I don't know if that to the average person sounds impactful. It really
does.
gets us excited here.
Yeah. I saw the science-based, part of the logo,
Yeah.
science-based addiction prevention. And I just wondered what that was about. And it's cool that you have those metrics and that you're analyzing, help you tweak your programming, year over year.
Yes.
And, just going back to what you were saying about the young adult, maybe teenager and young adult up to 25 years. I love what you're doing there because, educating them about what their choices, the ramification of their choices,
Yeah.
is it getting you to where you think you want to go? And
Yeah.
I love that line of thinking because so often it's just like, don't do this, don't do that.
Exactly.
But I love that program exists because, a lot of times young people, they don't want to be told what to not do. Right. But it's so important because, so many kids can be on the wrong path to life destruction. And to know that a program like yours exists to help those young people out is really, really helpful.
Yeah.
One thing we like to ask our community benefit organizations that come onto the show is, the support from the community is imperative for you to impact your mission with these young people. How can the Lancaster community get involved? Individuals or businesses? How can Compass Mark be helped by the Lancaster community?
We receive a lot of support from the community, and we need a lot of support from the community.
Yeah.
There are opportunities for businesses to support our programs. For instance, way back at the beginning of this, we looked at a few pictures of middle schoolers who are involved in 3 different districts in our county and in these leadership programs. If we can take kids who have leadership potential, whether that's for good or maybe not, exactly, these kids. We're in Columbia, Ephrata, and Manheim Township.
Yeah.
And teach them what leadership really is. Is it being in charge and making all the decisions, or is it being maybe a quiet leader who really listens and offers guidance in a humble way? Everybody has a different leadership style. So those kids all get together from the 3 school districts, meet each other in June, and then go away for 5 days for an overnight camp. So there's opportunities to sponsor our overnight camp.
Oh, cool.
Or you can just sponsor Compass Mark, as a year-long sponsor. We have a giving page of our website and are able to sort of lay out the different benefits for us, just getting your name out there and giving you a little visibility. And in return, what you're doing is just providing that programming for more kids in our community. The other thing we like to talk about is just being an advocate for prevention in your community. And that's really profound. Like I said before, we don't have like really flashy proof of all the sad things that might have happened if we didn't prevent a child from developing an addiction. We know that's what's happening. We know in the kids we work with long-term, like those middle schoolers, we know them for a whole year, and we see them gain confidence and start speaking up and really focusing on like kindness in their school and their family. But it's hard to communicate to the public. So our funding is often the first to get cut. Prevention is often going to get cut in a crisis. So
I
just
see.
knowing that we're out there looking to be in all of the schools in Lancaster County. So if you're a parent or a caregiver of a student, to be an advocate for prevention, for, in on your school board or just
Yeah.
in the community. And we also just encourage people to sort of pay attention to changing laws and norms. We have two legal substances, and that's alcohol and nicotine or tobacco. And now we're making decisions about a third in marijuana
Yeah.
or cannabis. And, you know, do we want a third legal substance that a lot of people have a lot of risk factors for,
Sure.
some real problems genetically. So the final thing I can offer is that we don't focus on recovery here at Compass Mark, but we are partnering all the time with the recovery
Right.
community.
Right.
Just support people with addiction disorders in your life. If somebody at your church or at your PTO meeting, they're struggling with an addiction or that their loved one is, ask how they are. We can talk about it.
Yeah.
Can offer a casserole. We can offer a ride, or just support so that people don't feel like they have to be quiet about the addiction disorders, both gambling and substances that are absolutely going on in their families.
I love that. So yeah, the community can obviously help with funding,
Yeah.
the donate button at the top of the Compass Mark page. But I love the advocate part.
Yeah.
Just having the conversation that
Yes.
might be hard to have, but needs to be have, and making people aware that these programs like Compass Mark, they're important, and they need to be around for our current kids and our future kids
Exactly.
and our
Exactly.
future
Like, let's
adults.
head off the next opioid crisis,
Yeah. Yep.
Let's nip it in the bud.
Yep. I love it. I love it. Any other events or initiatives that you've got going on that you'd like to share?
We have a lot of very specific trainings and conferences
Okay.
going on for teachers, and those other people and those SAP teams.
Yep.
But I think, with spring coming up, our conference is the main way we're focusing our efforts right now. We'll be at a string of health fairs and health expos coming up
Yep.
this spring and summer. And look around at your next health expo and see if our table is there and come say hi to us.
That's cool. That's cool. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on and sharing about Compass Mark. This was educational for me because, again, I didn't know who Compass Mark was. And the cool thing, one of the cool things that I, got out of this is my kids have been educated, I'm sure, by you or your team at Compass Mark. And it gives me great peace to know that has happened in their lives. The anger management part, the substance education.
Yeah.
I love that. So
Excellent. I'm so glad.
Yeah. So this was great. I've got a few more questions to get to know you a little bit better. If you got a few minutes to stick around here.
Absolutely.
So great. I want to know. This is a question I've been asking people. So I'm curious. What was your first job?
My first job was in my parents' restaurant. My family moved here to Lidditz in 1983 to open Sunday Best Ice Cream. So, if you lived in Lidditz in the 80s, hopefully you know Sunday Best. It was right on the corner next to Wilbur Chocolate. They
cool.
just wanted to do this, and they visited Lidditz. They visited the craft show. And we moved from New Jersey to this new town to open up that ice cream parlor. So I was going on 13, and I was fearless as far as that. I was dipping ice cream, waiting on customers, doing dishes, the whole 9 yards.
That first of all, that sounds amazing to have as your first job experience. I'd be like, one for the customer, one for me.
Ice cream everywhere. It was
We've
great.
had a couple of ice cream vendors on the show before.
Okay.
Nikki's Custard, which is on
Mhm.
Oregon Pike, is one of my
Yes.
current favorites. She was on the show last year. I mean, that just seems like an ice cream shop as a teenager would be awesome.
It was.
That's cool. So let's see. If you're not performing your responsibilities at Compass Mark, how do you like to unwind on your personal time?
Well, my partner Dave and I invested a good 10 years ago in a really big screened-in porch on the back of our
Oh, cool.
house. So
Yeah.
it's nothing wildly exciting, but being out all summer
Yeah.
on our screened-in porch and listening to the birds, using the
Yep.
Merlin app, identifying birds.
Okay.
Both the cats can go out on the screened-in porch and are just so very happy. In addition, we like to garden. We go to Longwood Gardens,
Oh, cool.
go to the movies. We're, generally pretty happy there at home.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I mean, being outside. I mean, we're almost there. I mean, the daylight savings is this weekend. We get to stay out at night a little later,
Yes.
enjoy the sunshine. So that's cool. And Longwood Gardens is amazing. My wife has a
Yes.
membership there for the last few years, and we went for the Christmas show and just to see everything that they do there. It's pretty awesome.
It's gorgeous.
All right. So last question. Your favorite spot to eat? Favorite restaurant in Lancaster?
Favorite spot to eat. That always changes.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I can tell you my favorite restaurant at the moment, but I can tell you my favorite dish at the moment.
Oh, okay.
I'm out in Penn Manor School
Yep.
District.
Yep.
And I get the Pad See You at Eastern Palace on Columbia
Ooh.
Ave
Oh, okay.
with pork. It is the most delicious thing I've ever eaten. I'm obsessed with it. So Pad See You.
I love it. I think you're the first person to have like a very specific dish that
It's
was
very
like
specific.
that's the number one. That's awesome. I'll have to check that out. I used to live in the Penn Manor area, but now I'm up by the Lancaster Airport, so I don't get down that way too often. But you said Eastern what? Eastern
Palace. That one
Eastern
is
Palace.
It's the old Wendy's, I think.
Yes.
They're on Columbia Ave.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Eastern Palace.
I
All right.
recommend it.
Hey, that's got to try it. There we go. Love it. Amy, this was awesome. Thank you so much for being on Lancaster Connects, sharing a little bit about you, but more importantly, sharing about the great work that you're doing with Compass Mark in Lancaster, in the Lancaster community. I'm sure it's a difficult job to do. You're having difficult conversations, but the impact on our youth and the young ones, and of course the young adults and beyond, is like you said, immeasurable. So thank you for that hard work that you're doing.
Thank you for being interested, and
Yeah,
when you do what you love, it's not as hard. Yeah.
that's right. That's right. Well, I hope you have a great rest of the afternoon and
Thank you. You too.
enjoy
Thank you.
porch season this spring.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see you. All right. Well, hey, we are almost wrapped up here. Just share a quick testimonial for Gardner's Mattress and More. Came in. I should have like brought the mail over here and opened it up live on camera, but I didn't. Forgot. But here we go. This testimonial actually came in from a person named Amy this afternoon. Opened up the mail and boom, here it is. She thought everybody at Gardner's was helpful, never felt pressured, answered all the questions. Everyone went out of their way to research information and work with us. So, if we don't know the answer to the question, as a person working with you to help meet your sleep needs, to help you wake up happy every morning, we'll find out that answer. So appreciate reading that. And all the staff were helpful and professional. Delivery was smooth, and she'd recommend Gardner's to others. So thank you to this customer named Amy for taking the time to write out your review. I think that's so cool that people still handwrite now. It was even written in cursive, which people don't do cursive much anymore. But I think that's really cool. She filled it out, put a stamp on it, mailed it back. Of course, Chris on the screen had our Google reviews up there, flipping through there. We're truly blessed with some amazing customers that say some fun things about us. So thank you to anybody who's ever made an investment in their health and well-being through a new mattress to achieve a better night's sleep. thank you to those folks, and thank you to everybody who's given us a review over the years. That's all for today. We're at our end of the show. Again, thank you for watching. We've got a great show next week. In fact, I mentioned that I go to the gym in the morning. My trainer, Sean Blake, will be on the show next week. He's doing an event at his place of employment called Universal Athletic Club. It's a total brain fart. Universal Athletic Club is hosting an event Sunday morning, I believe the 23rd. We're going to talk about that event. The event is an hour-long workout that benefits the Friendship community right here in Lancaster County. So we'll have Carol from Friendship Community and Sean Blake from Universal Athletic Club on the show next week. It'll be a great show, and look forward to you all tuning in. And again, if you'd like to be a guest on Lancaster Connects, go to lancasterconnects.com/guest, fill out the guest form. Love to have you on the show and tell your story as well. Thank you to today's guest, Amy Sechrist from Compass Mark. They're doing amazing work right here in Lancaster County. So again, thanks to everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Lancaster Connects. Have a great day.
Comments have exploded through the roof. So there you go.